In other novels of the contemporary novelists, we feel people are under the spell of urbanization and they are moving from rural areas to urban areas. Here is people, though they have gone to urban areas, are trying to come back to the Wessex area and settle down. So, this is a different kind of approach when he has. And lastly, when I talk about this kind of fascination for this, the idea behind his in his mind was that he wanted to capture and preserve and conserve these Wessex area or Wessex people, the customs and traditions for a longer time in the form of history. Before I switch over to another thing, or before I ask my fellow professor to talk about this, I would just quote a poem wherein he talks about how fate and destiny, the blind force, handles man. It's a beautiful poem which talks about how human beings are treated by or uh, or projected here. It's a poem called At a Country Fair. It's a kind of a metaphor, and when you look into the poem, you would find that he's talking about how destiny or fate controls the human beings. It calls the title of the poem is At a Country Fair, and the poem runs like this. At a bygone western country fair, I saw a giant led by a dwarf. At a bygone western country fair, I saw a giant led by a dwarf with a red string like a long thin scarf. The giant seemed unaware. So the man is a giant but being ruled by a small dwarf, and he is moving ahead in the guidance of that dwarf. And then I saw that the giant was blind. This is the problem. He is giant but he is blind. And then I saw that the giant was blind and the dwarf a shrewd eyed little thing. The giant, mild, timid, obeyed the string as if he had no independent mind or will of any kind. Wherever the dwarf decided to go, at his heels the other trotted meekly, perhaps I know not, reproaching weakly, like one fate bade that it must be so, whether he wished or no. Various sights in various climes I have seen, and more I may see yet, but that sight never shall I forget, and have thought it the sorriest of pantomimes, if once 100 times. So here he is trying to project his philosophy of life, the doctrine that he was being fascinated by, and that was that how this is how fate controls human beings, and there is always a clash between the fate and the individual will, and out of that there are tragic incidents and make the novels serious in tone and temperament. May I
Yes,
request my colleague?
we have learned a lot from Joshi sir about how the temperament was, what the surrounding were. Now, let us focus on the novels basically, and I'll request Ulupi Bin to concentrate on that. Ma'am.
Friends, Joshi sir, he focused on the dilemma of man between faith and technology, science. Hardy's characters, they are mere puppets between these two extremes of life. And finally, as Sir told that destiny is there, destiny plays the major role in his novels, and characters they are crushed, and finally they meet their end so tragically. That's why Sir told that his novels are we can say these are tragedy. Look at the slide, friends. Hardy's novel, we can divide his novels into three different groups, and three major groups are there. The first is novels of character and environment, which are called Wessex novels, and the second is romances and fantasies, and the third is novels of ingenuity. In his novels of character and environment, these novels are there. The first is Under the Greenwood Tree, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Return of the Native, The Mayor of Casterbridge, The Woodlanders, and some more novels are there, and Wessex Tales, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Life's Little Ironies and a Few Crusted Characters, and finally Jude the Obscure. The second group consists A Pair of Blue Eyes, The Trumpet Major, Two on a Tower, A Group of Noble Dames, The Well-Beloved. And the third group consists Desperate Remedies, The Hand of Ethelberta, Laodicean, Hardy's Wessex novels. Most of Hardy's Wessex novels provide a rich source of nature imagery, and we can see country life in the center of the novel, and we constantly feel a continuous relationship between natural beauties and man. Man is surrounded by natural beauties and he plays his role in midst of these natural beauties. In Wessex novels, we find one more thing, and that's Hardy's deep affinities with the farmland, rocks, hills, and people who living among them. Here in the thin grasses, more or less coating the hill, were touched by the wind in breezes of differing powers and almost of differing natures, one rubbing the blades heavily, another racking them piercing, another brushing them like a soft broom. See, human being, we characters, we have different mentality, we have different behavior, we have different attitudes towards society, towards nature. And here Hardy has projected this, one rubbing the blades heavily, another racking them piercing, another brushing them like a soft broom. See, here we can see the reflection of human mind, human behavior. Friends, Hardy's use of accurate detail to individualize the different species of trees is typical to his natural realism. I think so you could understand when Sir told this, Sir defined both of these words, one is naturalism and one is realism. Here we can see this perfect mixture of natural realism in Hardy's novels. Now look at the chief characteristics of Hardy's novels. Hardy's stage is chiefly set in rural Wessex. His novels deal with Dorset farmers. Hardy has sympathetic insight into farmers' life, and the dialogues we find sometimes unreal, and the treatment of nature in his novels is poetic. Hardy frequently uses coincidence and accidents. We find a secret marriage, providing note of gloom, and a tragic and sudden death of the central character. Let us see the themes of Hardy's novels. In the center of the novel, we find love affairs of principal characters, and Hardy focuses on man proposes and God disposes. As Sir told, Joshi Sir told that it's very difficult to understand Hardy's novels or Hardy. So his plots are complex, but the plots are well knit, and these plots present the conflict between the old rural civilization and the new urban civilization. That was the worst effect of industrialization. We can say man was in the dilemma between these two extremes of rural civilization, the rural morals, and urban civilization. Major of Hardy's characters were Wessex peasants, labourers, shepherds, and singers. They were type rather than individual. They were not independent to act like their own. The characters, most of the characters were emotional rather than intellectual, and that is why, sir, I think so. We can say it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Emotional. They feel it. Good people were there, and they were noble, selfless, self-sacrificing, gentle-hearted, and of course, villains were there, and they were like dashing, sparkling, shifting, cunning, hypocritical, and fickle-minded. Hardy's male characters were vivid, passionate, emotional, and impulsive, while female characters they consist subtlety, emotional will, passion. They were passionate and innocent. Now look at nature reflected in Hardy's novels. We feel note of nature in Hardy's novels. Hardy shows nature as a sentient force with definite personality. He reflects this natural force. He reflects this nature in any singular character of his novel. Next slide, please. Hardy's characters interact with nature, they talk to nature, they scream in the midst of nature, they run, they feel themselves relieved in the midst of nature. So they interact with nature, they talk about themselves to nature, to trees, to streams, to mountains, to hills, to birds, and even to the flowers of the wild forest. This is one point. Hardy's attitude towards nature was not Wordsworthian. Wordsworth worshipped nature. He loved nature, he worshipped nature, but Hardy's attitude towards nature was little bit different. And look at the next slide, please. He did not believe that nature has any holy plant or healing power. Being influenced by the theory of evolution, he found much in nature that was cruel and antagonistic to man. So nature here plays a role of antagonist. Yes, the characters they feel themselves safe in midst of nature, but at the same time the natural calamities here play the role of a cruel villain or an antagonist. Several capacities of nature in Hardy's novel we will observe. Influence of nature on humanity, influence of nature on the moods and actions of human characters, emotional connection between nature and human beings, and finally the change in the atmosphere with a change of mood of the character. Here we can see this change. The mood of Tess is well reflected when her virginity was ravished by Alec. See this description. Darkness and silence ruled everywhere around. Above them rose the primeval yews and oaks of the chase. Above them stole the hopping rabbits and hares. But might some way, where was Tess's guardian angel? Where was the providence of her simple faith? The question for religion, the question for faith, the question for the existence of the God is there. If God is there, if the God is omnipresent, if the God is omnipotent, where is He when virginity of Tess was ravished? Look at this slide. Far from the Madding Crowd, which is one of the notable novels of Thomas Hardy. Here in this novel, we see the contrast of simple country life and madding crowd, the ignoble strife of cities. Central love story of Gabriel Oak and Bathsheba Everden is there. As I can say, very innocent heroine, Bathsheba, but her innocence is what we can say, it's disguised. She is a capricious woman. She is a capricious young lady, and she is attracted towards Sergeant Troy. And she marries Troy for his external polish and cultured manners. Troy. He is a villain. He's, we can say, he's not not from the list of good characters. Troy, before his marriage, ruined an innocent farm girl, and whose name is Fanny, and she meets a pathetic end by the end of this novel. This man, Sergeant Troy, proves himself an irresponsible and unloyal husband. And Oak saves Bathsheba's farm during natural calamity. While Troy was drunken, he invited his friends, he invited the farmers to have drink on that particular farm on the day of particular auspicious festival. And he was drunken, and Oak saves at that particular time Bathsheba's farm during that natural calamity. Hardy's sharp observation of nature is reflected in this scene. See, the night had a sinister aspect. The moon, as seen through these films, had a lurid and metallic look. The fields were sallow with impure lights. The same evening, the ship trailed homeward head to tail. The behavior of the rooks had been confused. Friends, let me tell you here something that we suffered a lot during the earthquake of 2001. At that particular time, some animals, they show the symptoms, they show the signs of this earthquake, but we were not able to decode their language. And here, see, the sinister evening, the sinister night was there, and here the birds, the animals, they behave in such a way that they show some signals, they show some signs, they show some symbols of forthcoming event or forthcoming natural calamities. Here, the same evening, the ship trailed homeward head to tail, and the behavior of the rooks, it's a kind of crow. Rooks had been confused. The horses had moved with timidity and caution. Thunder was imminent. The thunder was coming, and Oak was enough sensitive to get the signals, and that's why he refused to Sergeant Troy to have drink with the farmers and laborers and with Troy, and he was an angel to save Bathsheba's farm at that particular evening. His next novel, Tess of the D'Urbervilles. This novel is divided into 7 phases through which Tess passes. The maiden no more, the rally, the consequence, the woman pays, the convert, the fulfillment. These are the phases through Tess passes. Next slide, please. Tess here is described as a pure country girl. Pure country girl, in Hardy's words, we can see her personality. For all her bouncing womanliness, you could sometimes see her 12th year in her cheeks, or her 9th sparkling from her eyes, and even her 5th would filt over the curves of her mouth now